We knew we'd established the craziest place on God's earth for rock and roll. I promise you nothing but severe pain of the ear, and I will melt you if you've got the balls to come and see us.
I Judas Priest devono la loro fama soprattutto al successo ottenuto negli Stati Uniti. La scena dell'heavy metal londinese si muoveva ancora nell'ombra.
There were loads of metal fans in Britain who felt disenfranchised. You had magazines writing about punk and new wave, didn't want to know about the old school, and Priest, Motorhead, AC/DC were largely included by so many people in the media as old school. Suddenly the underground scene, word of mouth, became all important. And it was at this time that the bandwagon, the heavy metal sound house in northwest London, came into its own because a guy there called Neil Kay stuck to his guns.
The bandwagon was a very big pub, and Neil Kay set up a metal DJ night, and he called it Neil Kay's Heavy Metal Sound House.
The manager of the pub said to me, "Why don't you play some punk?" But I can't tell you what I told him, except it started in F and finished at F.
In my view, nobody should be allowed to stand on a stage unless they can actually present the total professional thing, unless they really can sing and really can play. Punk was a total anti-attitude towards music.
There was a music magazine called Sounds that I had noticed following the progression of rock. I was reading through it one day and I thought, we need some publicity. This is desperate. So I phoned up Sounds and I talked to Jeff Barton. And I said, I have got a heavy metal discotheque. We call it a sound house because the word discotheque sucks. Get your butt down here. I promise you nothing but severe pain of the ear, and I will melt you if you've got the balls to come and see us.
Hard rock, heavy metal, heavy rock, whatever you want to call it, was my favourite form of music. And I just thought it needed somebody to speak out about it.
He did a double-page expose right in the centre of Sounds the next week. All hell broke loose. It was as if the floodgates had opened. We went up from about 300 to about 750, 800. There was no room for half of them. They were all outside on the roundabout, on the green, everywhere.
You had kids in denim jackets full of patches, T-shirts that went from Motorhead to Judas Priest to AC/DC.
You kind of felt part of a community. You felt very, very special. It was also a blessed relief after being bombarded here, there and everywhere by other forms of music that you didn't really like.
We knew we'd established the craziest place on God's earth for rock and roll.
You had these weird, crazy things happening. People would turn out and they weren't just playing air guitar, they'd play cardboard guitar. They'd lovingly craft their own instruments. It became a scene within a scene.
Rob Loonhouse. He invented the air guitar probably back about 1976.
Rob Loonhouse was a regular patron of the bandwagon in Kingsbury. Mad as a hatter. Absolutely mad as a hatter. Just an incredible character.
The cardboard guitar syndrome, or, sorry, Rob, hardboard guitar, he objected to the word cardboard, started one evening back then when the customary amount of head-banging was going on, as it always did. Rob shoved his way forward. The next thing I see is this tall bloke, thin with a beard, and he's standing there with a hardboard guitar, and he's using it, and he's looking so good, I really believe he's playing it.
The great thing was they weren't taking the piss. They were doing it because they loved it.
The next weekend, there was 10 of them. The next weekend, there was 15. Then there was 20. There was no other club like it in the country, and people came from far and wide to see this phenomenon.
Our guitar player, Randy Rhoads, left Quiet Riot to join up with Ozzy Osbourne, and he used to give me phone calls when they were recording those albums and said, "You're not going to believe what's going on over here." The kids in the audience come with cardboard cutouts of a mock-up of the guitar players, kind of guitars they use. I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, like, for example, if you were to see Judas Priest, they'd have a flying V, a cardboard flying V like K.K. Downing would have."
Neil Kay suonava ciò che il pubblico voleva sentire. Per le band metal senza speranze, consegnare una demo al Soundhouse significava tutto.
Jeff Barton took my weekly request chart. He published it in Sounds and it went worldwide. That really opened the door. Demo tapes started pouring in from everywhere. Steve Harris, Dave Murray, they came in one night from East London. I'd never even heard of them. Here's our new demo tape, mate. Do me a favour and listen to it, will you? And I took it home after the wagon that night and I put it on my cassette deck and I started getting all these goosebumps all over my arms.
They just went through the roof. He just was like blown away by this piece of music.
I listened to it and I listened to it and it was the best I'd ever heard.
Neil Kay started to play it. People at the bandwagon were listening to it and, wow, this is amazing. This is great. This is a demo? Surely not. These were songs that you could headbang to, you could wave your fist to.
That was Iron Maiden's demo tape.
Il bandwagon a nord-ovest di Londra divenne l'epicentro spirituale dell'heavy metal. All'alba degli anni '80, nuove band che si fondavano sulla velocità, la potenza e il valore erano pronte per dare inizio a una nuova era.
The new wave of British heavy metal was just really a term we invented in the office one afternoon. There were a lot of young, exciting British rock bands coming out of the woodwork, coming out of the metal work, if you like. What I didn't realise at the time was how many of them there were.
There was Samson,
Savage, Diamond Head,
Venom,
Angel Witch, Saxon,
Fist,
Tank, Girl School,
the Tigers of Pantang.
But only a few lasted a few years and had a career out of it.
A lot of those bands really didn't make much of a dent over here. Pretty much it was Iron Maiden and Iron Maiden and Iron Maiden.
Grazie al loro leggendario demo, gli Iron Maiden si guadagnarono una schiera di fan fedeli e la reputazione di band della gente.
They were guys who had all honed their chops in bar bands. They knew how to play their instruments really well. They were actually offered a record deal in '76 if they'd shave their heads into mohawks and play punk music. Well, they stuck it out in the London club scene for a few years, said, I think we've got a good thing going. We're going to stick with the Iron Maiden plan. See you in 5 years.
Gli Iron Maiden attesero pazientemente finché non ottennero il contratto che permise loro di mantenere la propria immagine. Ironia della sorte, quando pubblicarono il loro primo album omonimo nell'80, sia i critici che i fan notarono subito un legame tra la band e le caratteristiche punk che deploravano.
More than any band at that particular time, they had a little bit of grudging respect from punk writers of that generation, particularly with their singer Paul Di'Anno in the lineup. They had this kind of punk metal edge that I think crossed over to a large extent.
They wrote these songs that were really complicated, like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, prog rock, or Genesis. And then they had the energy of punk. So while punk bands were a lot of times just really playing 3 chords really fast, Iron Maiden was playing this intricate spider-webby guitar lines, and it sounded like classical music.
Like there's a lot of that in there. It's very noodly.
It sounded more aggressive and more confrontational than pop music did. And if you were a very mainstream, straightforward, good person, you would not want to listen to Iron Maiden.
The timing couldn't have been more perfect when they hit. The genre as a whole was starting to happen. And here comes Maiden. It's like, I've never heard this before. This is eviler than Priest. Like, that was my first thoughts hearing Iron Maiden. They're Judas Priest, but more evil. I was like, how'd they do this? How did they do this?
Nel 1982 gli Iron Maiden avevano già alle spalle 2 album e una schiera di fan entusiasti in tutto il mondo. Tuttavia, con l'aumentare della popolarità, la band guardava al futuro, oltre i limiti imposti dal frontman Paul Di'Anno.
Di'Anno was very much a punk frontman. He wasn't a great singer, but he was right for what the first 2 albums represented. But with Paul Di'Anno, they were going to be stuck. He was unpredictable and enigmatic in a way that was not acceptable. To move on, they needed a new singer.
where I first saw Iron Maiden. I thought, this is just fierce. God, this is good. Wow. I looked at the singer and I thought, I know, I reckon I could do a better job than him, though, you know. I mean, I should be singing for those guys.
I left alone. My mind was blank.
They got in Bruce Dickinson from Samson, a band who really weren't going anywhere.
What did I see?
Well, Bruce had a great voice, great range.
Can I believe?
He was more articulate, more dynamic, more diverse, a better lyricist and a better singer than Paul Di'Anno. It allowed Maiden to move to the next level.
Once you bring Bruce Dickinson into the lineup, you can see that transformation from a band who can get a club going, can get a 3,000 or 4,000 seater venue going. But with Dickinson on board, you know, you're talking about, you know, arena rock at its greatest.
Metal is vaudeville, in a way. The story, the theatre in your head, it takes over. As soon as you go on a stage, you can't be a little pinhead, so you have to blow yourself up. But if you want to be that big to somebody who's right at the back of the arena, you've got to take a real... and you inflate your ego to supersized proportions. It's supersize me, and everything is big, and you don't make a gesture like that, nobody will see it. Arms get flung, grand gestures, and the person at the back feels like you're much closer.
Con Dickinson come frontman, la band non poteva desiderare cantante migliore. Ma c'era un membro della band che si distingueva dagli altri. Pur non suonando strumenti e non sapendo cantare, Eddie divenne l'immagine stessa della band e uno dei simboli più longevi dell'heavy metal.
Enduring symbols.
Eddie was the original alter ego that could express humor and irony and aggression.
They put all their fantasy, as it were, all their image into Eddie. He became the personification of Iron Maiden on T-shirts, on photographs, on album sleeves, on single sleeves.
What you've got to realise is that Eddie basically started out as just a head, you know, as a cardboard cutout on a piece of plywood.
It was more like a kabuki kind of mask and was shaped to look a little bit grotesque. And I remember seeing that behind the drummer. We'd do the set, and at the end of it, he had some fake blood gushing out in the mask, and actually went over the drummer's head. He was just covered in this red stuff.
The original Eddie didn't have long hair. They had to give him some hair so he looked like a proper headbanger.
What was the inspiration for this album?
Eddie. I might have never gotten into Maiden if I didn't see Eddie on the cover of that first album, and I looked at it and I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Just shows you how important artwork was and is to music.
I just love the fact that we didn't know what he is. Was he a corpse? Was he a monster? Was he an alien? Because every record, he changed to whatever the theme of the record was. Killers, he's killing someone. Peace of Mind, he's in a straitjacket. Power Slave, he's in ancient Egypt. And then on top of that, when Maiden's playing, maybe if the energy level isn't as high, boom, they bring out the giant Eddie to come on stage, and everyone's like, oh, there's Eddie.
There was something about the image. It was almost like World Federation Wrestling. It was that kind of larger-than-life escapism thing, and slightly ridiculous. And I think that's why a lot of young kids got into it.
By owning Iron Maiden, you knew you were consuming this art and this aesthetic that belonged to sort of a darker subculture. And that was very appealing. It seemed to say, you know, you think you're alienated, but you're not. There's 2 million people exactly like you.
Iron Maiden grabbed everyone between the ages of 14 and 22 at that time by the balls and didn't let go.